All right, we ready? All right, everybody. If you're watching us on Facebook, you know that this is when we record. This is how we record the YaJagoff podcast every week, and
it's the bloopers.
Yeah, it's the behind the scenes thing. Like you see people going in and out. You kind of see, you never really want to see hamburger or sausage and hot dogs being made, but it's okay to see the YaJagoff podcast being made.
Yeah. Just how we
so we are in masks. We are at the Pittsburgh Botanic Gardens.
Yeah, you want to see the behind the scenes here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So anyways, this is what we do. You'll see some guests come in and out. We have a harp player. And what we do first is we read an ad for Rorik Honda, and then we'll get right into the podcast. And then if you're watching, remember that you can download the final edit of the podcast every Monday from the radio.com app, the K2K radio website, or on Tuesday at YaJagoff.com.
Well said.
Ready to roll?
I'm ready.
All right. Rorik Honda knows its customers and community, so they have asked some comedians to better explain the bells and whistles affiliated with their cars. Through fun parodies, check out the value of the Rorik Advantage,
the spacious interior of new and used finds, and experience the durability of a Honda vehicle, all by following us where? On social media. To learn more about Honda that suits you, visit Rorik.com for all of your vehicle needs. And now, the YaJagoff podcast from the Pittsburgh Botanic Garden.
So this is where you hear music, you hear our opening, and this is where we are. So listen, John and Rachel here from the YaJagoff podcast.
Do you know what I'm calling this episode?
I see it, BOGO.
Yeah, BOGO.
Yeah, so give the background on that,
well,
Themer.
I mean, listen, it's not like a buy one, get one, but like everything gets shortened anymore, so I thought it's like a botanical garden. Get it? So it's a different meaning to YaJagoff BOGO. Oh, I lost it.
I got it.
Anyway,
all right.
Welcome to the YaJagoff podcast. We're pretty excited with these guests. This is one of our final episodes for the 2020, which everyone is so ready to be done with 2020. But some exciting things. Always check out our blog post. This is where we talk about what was on our blog this week before we get to our guests. And it's exceptionally important to remind you to go to, it's one of our blog posts, Mancini's Bakery, not the one in the Strip District, but the one in McKees Rocks, because there is an 8-foot tree made out of bread with a pumpernickel trunk.
Yeah, and if you go watch the video from our blog, you'll see that we made a nice little video. But Nick made the bread out of the same bread the dough that they make their Italian twist and buns out of. And on the bottom of the tree, the 8-foot tree, he even put a football, a basketball, like all of it completely edible, except the fact he explains
don't eat it.
It's been drying out for about 3 or 4 days, and you probably don't want to eat it.
And people will touch it because the whole point is to get a selfie with it while you're waiting in line for the Christmas Eve bread.
Yeah.
So
everybody knows when you go to Mancini's, you wait in line on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of joy there because you can get your
selfie.
Picture taken with it. Right.
And then John launched, as usual, the YaJagoff Challenge, which is we urge our listeners, and it's already started, they kind of tapped us and said, guys, don't forget you need to do this. If you're headed into like a Michael's, it used to be a Catan's.
Yeah.
A Michael's.
So Pittsburgh.
Yeah, a Lowe's, Home Depot. This first one was actually Target, entry number 1.
On Easton, PA.
Okay, is that where it was?
Wasn't even around here.
So basically, we challenge you to take the letters that you see that hang on those hooks ever so eloquently and turn them into a YaJagoff word. It's kind of cool. We have stockings, and there was somebody did like wooden letters.
Wooden letters,
stencils.
right. And if you're you have a lot of courage, put yourself in the picture.
There
like,
you go.
Take credit for your work, but send it to us because we are going to give a prize to the best one.
Yeah. Maybe it's a parking.
And also, and again, as we were posting we post people that are being jag-offs, people that are embarrassing the rest of us all doing good work. And the one thing we did is I noticed that, Giant Eagle has prepackaged all of their dozen donuts now, you know, and I always hate it. When I go to the donut shop, I know exactly the 12 donuts I want. And I'm always late, as you know. And when I get there, there's always some jag-off in front of me. He goes, I think I'll have, no, wait, look, the same donuts have been there for the last 5 years. Pick them and let's roll.
You
right?
do this at McDonald's.
But COVID is the thing. Like COVID has saved us because of COVID, you're not allowed to stand there all day and pick your donuts. They're prepackaged. So a positive note about COVID.
Positive note, I guess.
All right. So we have a bunch of guests here
Positive guests today, right? Here's how this one goes. We've wanted the one and only Doug Oster on the podcast for, I don't know, a year and a half now since we did the food bank stuff with PTL. And in typical John and Rachel fashion, we have him in the bullpen and 800 other things happen. So we get in touch with him and he just goes poof, and automatically there's this amazing place that we did not know about. So we want to share it with you. So this is why we are in Oakdale. It's this hidden secret in Oakdale called the Pittsburgh Botanic Garden. So he says, come over and have a podcast with me and the executive director, Keith. So does it get any
It's
better?
like living in Orlando and not knowing Disney World exists.
Yeah.
Right? In your backyard, right? It's kind of stupid as a Pittsburgher. Right? You're like, how did I not know this?
Yeah, but
So
the more I read about it, I can't wait to talk to Keith Kaiser because I think this is going to be super interesting. So first
Super
up,
cool.
are we talking to Keith or Doug?
I think we're going to talk to both. And on top of that, we have, our friend Frizzy, who's been on the podcast, Emmy Award-winning Pittsburgh rapper. And his girlfriend, Say, has put together a cool video.
Fiance.
What's that?
She's the fiance.
Fiance, yes. So she's a fiance, Say. And so anyway, she's put together this cool video, to kind of make everybody smile during the COVID. So we're going to talk to her this podcast. On top of that, as you said, typical John and Rachel fashion, about 2.5 years ago, we said, we need to have a harp player on our podcast.
Because it's my favorite instrument.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And 2.5 years later, almost to the date, we actually have a harp player on our podcast. So as we go, why don't we do this? As we go into, before we talk to Keith and Doug, let's hear a little bit of harp playing. What do you think? Are you ready?
I'm ready. Stephanie,
all right,
are you
don't
ready?
cry.
We're putting you on the spot. I won't cry.
Rach?
I mean, I could just sit here the whole
Are
time.
you doing that? Oh my God.
And not interview anyone.
Yes.
Wow. Applause,
And so we're going to be talking to Stephanie at the end of the podcast. We have to save her. So anyways, Doug and Keith, welcome to the YaJagoff podcast. So are you both well-versed in the phrase YaJagoff? That's the first question. Go ahead, Doug.
You know what? The funny thing is, both of us are from Ohio.
Right. I thought so. Both of you.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Kind of an interesting story, actually.
It is.
That I worked in Youngstown for the now defunct Youngstown Vindicator, and I spent many a day at the garden that Keith had built there. And we didn't know each other until I went back there, I don't know how many years ago, and spoke.
Did a program.
And we became friends, and then he ended up here, and it all worked out.
Yep.
That's great. So did you coerce him to come here, or was it just kind of it all fell into place?
No, we didn't really hardly know each other at
Oh,
that point.
okay.
Or, Doug, did you go over to Ohio and say, they yell at us all the time for driving slow in the fast lane, so come on over here and I'll teach you how to drive?
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
No, go ahead,
So
Keith.
it's been a great relationship that we've been creating. So we do programming together, usually once a quarter for more than 4 years now. We've been doing a class that we call Botany Walk and Talk.
Okay.
And it's all about getting outside and seeing the plant collections that grow here at the gardens and learning more about them.
Sure.
So
Keith becomes my
Doug-
straight man.
So Doug shares information, and I do as well. And we kind of have a plant list that we go through, and people are kind of learning plants in a fun way.
The last one we did was I made the ultimate garlic lover's tomato garlic basil soup.
So it always ends with lunch.
Well, yeah.
I can
Very much
understand.
plant-based, always is, and we try to see or learn or talk about plants that are in our gardens when we have our lunch. And so Doug did show us how great his garlic soup, garlic tomato soup can be.
And it's funny that whenever we get together, when you guys were all getting set up, he's telling me all about how he planted his garlic, how I planted my garlic, how his fence, he built a fence. And I was telling him about, I just picked a winter radish today. And we're just always talking, we're always talking gardening.
I heard you talking about radishes. Well, and before you even move on, isn't it true then your book is that, right? It is what? Tomatoes, garlic, basil.
Tomato, garlic, basil. It's one of the 5 that I've written.
Yeah.
And
but the most recent?
The most recent actually is Steel City Garden.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
Call her out, Doug. Come on, call her out.
Garlic fanatic.
Okay.
Okay. To give you an example, when my son and I would make pasta, we would use 2 full heads of garlic, not cloves. Heads.
Wow.
3 if no one's coming over.
Oh, wow. Any reason? I mean, did you...
You know, I'm Italian through marriage. And so my wife is Italian, and she taught me about garlic. And then once, gardening took over my life, I said, well, I gotta grow garlic. And just like anything out of the garden, the garlic that you pick, it's like a tomato out of the garden. It's like anything else. It is so far superior to anything you could get anywhere.
And everybody should plant garlic because it's if you just plant one or a row, it's the narrowest it'll plant. You always have room in your garden for some kind of bulb, and why not plant garlic bulbs?
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm a non-green thumber here, so
Right.
maybe I'll
Right.
learn.
Listen,
Planting
wait.
garlic, it would grow.
At some point, we're going
Really?
to talk about
Okay.
the mums that Rachel actually resuscitated, which is
my mums.
completely out of her character because she's
My
killed
husband
pretty
called
much
me
everything.
Morticia. Yeah.
Right.
For real. And these mums were fantastic, so I don't know
So
what I did.
I love the fact that I really want to get into how much space is down here, Keith, and what you do here. But Doug, the funny thing about you is I've for years followed you on social media. That makes me old, not you. And but I love it. But people tag you, they'll like send you. I've done this to you. I send you a picture of a bug or a picture of a plant. And go, what is this? And you write back, oh, that's Kaleidoscope parnatia.
Like
and you're
it's
like, yeah,
nothing.
that's what it was, a cricket. But I love the fact that you know this stuff and you've been here so long. You know these things that you're like the self-help
Encyclopedia.
guy. Yeah, right. You're the guy that you're like the 1-800 call Doug. My plants are dying.
I
thing.
consider that the most important part of my job.
Is that right?
When I do my radio show on KDK on Sunday mornings, I always say if you're too shy to call or if you can't get through, just send me a message on my website, dougoster.com, and I answer every question. And I feel it's my responsibility to answer those questions because it can be, difficult when you start gardening. There's so much to think about.
Right.
And one time I brought a new gardener to a nursery, and the next day she texted me. She goes, I'm completely flummoxed. Tubers and annuals and perennials. And I said, there's only 3 things you need to know. Improve the soil, know when the plant goes in, and don't let it dry out. Now, Keith and I both know it's a lifelong learning, but those 3 things, they really will get you a long way. And I love answering questions. And you know what? I get a lot of stories out of that, too. In fact, I got one on Facebook just yesterday where, and I can't wait to do it, this woman was telling me about how she saved all these bulbs when they redid that Allegheny Center area.
Nova
Right.
Place, yep.
And they tore up all this ground, and she found all these bulbs, and she saved them, and she planted them in her yard because they were just going to go to the dumpster.
Sure.
And I love that sort of thing, that people, they see that as a value. They see those bulbs sitting there, and they're like, well, I can't let those go to waste. Those needs to be planted. And it's just, with gardening and social media, you hear so much about social media and how negative it is. Mm-hmm. It's the absolute opposite for gardeners. In all these years I've been doing this, it's almost 99% positive stuff where people want to know something or they want to share something.
Yeah.
Gardeners aren't like fishermen. They share their secrets.
Well, and we like to be called plant nerds, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We like to talk plant knowledge and language that you may not understand, and that's okay. But we want you to learn it. We want you to gain knowledge by trying those 3 basic things that Doug said about plants. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to try.
Yeah.
So what if it died? You learned something from that.
That's
When
so
something
true.
dies, I always say something happened to it before you got it.
Yeah. And then you sing the circle of life, and it all goes on.
Right. And that is part of it, Keith, too, where you got to tell gardeners, plants die. That's part of it.
Yep.
And don't sulk. Just say, okay, something else has to go there. That's all. It's just nature telling you, okay, well, it's time for something else there.
And your compost pile needs food, so it's fine to send that plant that doesn't look very good to the compost pile and start new plants, because all it's doing is making new soil that you can grow.
Well, and I want to get to the whole, we need to know the whole history of this place, because side note, I said to Doug, how long has this place been around?
Yeah, it's
and
a secret.
He said, well, it started in the 80s, but there's 5 people who know the exact date. But
Yeah.
Before we jump subjects, Doug, I was looking at, I follow you on The Green Voice. You're writing for The Green Voice. What a great piece. Talk a little bit about that and how that started. But the question that was asked of you was, what is the best gift for a gardener? Which I thought was, how can we not ask that question at holiday time? And your answer was?
Believe it or not, it's a gift certificate.
Yeah, a gift card.
Same thing.
A gift card was the answer.
I know that it's not personal or anything, but from being gardeners for all this time and people trying to buy for you, we're very particular about the seeds and plants and things that we want to put in. And the other thing is, when you're a cheapskate like me, when you get that gift certificate, you might add the potatoes that are going to cost you a little bit more shipping, because you have that extra money that someone's giving you, and you can pick exactly what you want. Now, I had a lot of other things listed there.
Okay.
But the number one thing,
Yes.
Keith, that I want is
Yes,
a
sir.
gift certificate.
I even know where you want it too, so I got it.
Oh my gosh! But how are you liking? Your hand is sort of in a bunch of different things. As you mentioned, you're on KDK Radio. You're constantly online, like John said, giving answers. It's like an Ask Natalie, but really it's an Ask Doug as far as anything nature related. And also now you have this new your efforts with the publication. What is that like?
I love it, because I hate to say this, even if they didn't pay me, I would be telling these stories.
Yeah.
That's why you're on the podcast, because we don't pay either.
Yeah.
My life's work basically is trying to tell people's stories. The gardening is in there, but it's the people. It's the people and why they garden, why they're obsessed with a certain plant, what it means to them. There's more to this than just putting a plant in the dirt.
Yeah.
It goes so much deeper than that, and I've told so many stories, even since I've been with the Green Voice. A Marine with PTSD, how a garden helps him. Up in Slippery Rock, the Growing Together aquaponics.
Yes, at the North Country Brewing.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a story about growing plants with fish, but it's also about the people in there
No
and
question.
their relationships around these plants. And like I said, this is just what I do, and this is what I'm always going to do. And I'm just lucky to have someone to pay me to do it.
I love it. Now, Keith, let's go back to here, because again,
it's beautiful.
I literally grew up 15 minutes or less from here. And so I feel like an idiot
We're not that old.
never knew it. What's that?
We're not
We're
that
not
old.
that old.
It's just crazy and so how big is this place?
Sure.
What's it set up? You guys talked about vegetables earlier in the podcast. What things do you grow here? What classes do you do? Give us the whole
Sure.
rundown, please.
So, Pittsburgh Botanic Garden, and I'm going to correct you, make sure it is botanic.
Yeah, it's not botanical,
It's
as
not
I said
botanical.
earlier. Yes.
But you know what? It doesn't matter.
Okay.
No old.
I was just having
come.
the same conversation with someone else this morning. Botanic and botanical, is the same word, really. It's just this extra al that doesn't have anything to do with anything. So it's
like
fine.
Rachel.
But our name is Botanic.
Leave it at Rach.
We are an organization that has been on this site since let's back up. 1988, as you said, was when a group of kind of professional horticulturists in this community said, Phipps is a great place, but we need more. We always need more gardens, don't we, Doug? We need more gardens, and we need a place to grow gardens outdoors. So that was their beginning concept, and we started as the Horticulture Society of Western Pennsylvania. Led us to about 10 years to look for land to finally start a garden, and it was 1998 that we then signed a lease with Allegheny County. So we leased.
And back up though, how do you look for that? What are you looking for?
Well, I wasn't on that process,
okay.
but they were looking for land that they could afford to buy or lease, first off. That was very important. And also ways to create a place for the public to come and learn about the connections of plants in our daily lives. So they found 460 acres right here as what was part of Settlers Cabin Park. So our property line to the east actually is then right there, Settlers Cabin Park. So 460 acres here today give us 60 acres actually open to the public. So where we are in this wonderful 1870s barn is on land that was both farmed, of course, and then very much coal mined for a good close to 100 years.
Okay.
But we also have history that we talk about because the Settlers Cabin, about 1780s, is on our site as well.
There actually is a Settlers Cabin.
There is. Yep. So if you go
Didn't know
back
that.
out the driveway and look left or look across the street, you can see it.
Oh,
So
good.
That's where
That's
Keith
right.
sleeps.
Yeah, that's with the mice.
Has.
So we do programming that really focuses on the history of this land and how do we connect the people to it that start back to the 1780s, mid 1800s with farming. And actually, if you look out the window here, up the way, you can see a cleared space. That actually is the farm lane, as we called it. Because it leads right up to a open area that was where crops were grown and cattle were grazing, where we now call it a meadow. They would have called it a farm field.
Okay.
And then right on to our stories about the use of this land as a mining site and the work that we are doing to do reclamation and cleanup. So there's stories about all these things. But then why are we really here? Well, we really are focusing on the plants of Allegheny Plateau, which is this geographic region of western Pennsylvania, a little bit eastern Ohio, and down into West Virginia and so on. But that's really our specialty, focusing on the plants that are native to this Allegheny Plateau region.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So-
I have to say, I told you when we were speaking outside, just by looking at the website, you're learning, right? Because you have it kind of marked into sections on almost, I don't know how, like you said, if you're in Disney World, how do you not know? It's almost like, Adventureland is over here and this is here. Yeah. And it is great for children to learn, but it's good for adults too. And you're saying it's about, an hour for someone to take an entire tour to see the entire, or an hour and a half?
You could probably spend more than an hour.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was
For
going to
sure.
say, you're not going to get me out of here in an hour.
No, it all
Yeah.
depends on your level of interest and what you want to do. If you want to take a walk and enjoy some of the woodland pathways, you
Right.
maybe an
But
hour is
what
all
are
you have.
you telling
Great.
them as you're walking along? That's what I want to know.
Well, it's self-learning. So there are some interpretive panels and signs. For instance, you can
Sure.
kind of see a couple up there, those greenish and white ones. Those are about pollinators. So we have a garden that those are in called the Hillside Pollinator Garden. So we're focusing on stories that relate to and information to pollinators on this site and in our gardens in our lives today, right up through to the apiary. So we have bees on our site. But also then down in the woodland areas towards the Asian woods, we have mailboxes with tree times in it where it talks about the tree that this is by. Or we have little ephemeral signs that might say something about mining or why we left the seed pods on this flowering plant that looks dead to other people. Well, the insects and the birds are eating those seeds. So it's very much about passive learning. And that's what we're doing a lot of these days because our on-site programming obviously is very different this year. We haven't had any school kids, of course, which is what we usually have a lot of schools that are coming here. So that'll come back. We know that. And we have some great support that foundations help us provide funding for them to come here, often busing dollars.
Okay.
So that's important.
Yeah.
But then we offer a large range of programming for kids and families up through adults once or twice a month.
Okay.
But I see even people as we're recording this is the biggest snow ever for a long time. But do I see people cross-country skiing out here, right?
I haven't seen any skiers. I saw someone today with snowshoes.
Snowshoes,
But
okay.
they're just people visiting.
Yeah.
They want to see the landscape in the winter. It's great.
Oh,
No,
wow.
the one thing that you need to know is that it is beautiful. That it's beautiful year-round. And it's so funny that Keith and I were up in the Hillside Pollinator Garden before you guys came, talking gardening. And there's more than just for the pollinators there. There's also the beauty. Even now, those grasses, the way they were silhouetted against the snow, we just sat there and said, isn't that great?
Yes. Yes.
I'm
So-
actually quite sad when someone says snow is ugly. I'm like, you need to think differently. Look out there. That's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. It has been this snow for real because the roads are clean and all. But
snow does get dirty.
Yes, no doubt. Now, so you talked about you're trying to sort of keep going what's indigenous, I guess, to this area, right? So
Native.
we know the Jagger bush and these kind of things. But what's some of the things that would surprise some of the people that are native to this area?
Well, the one story that I like to talk about, many people know Hydrangea Arborescens, which is it's a native hydrangea that grows in this area. And they may know, if they know of any hydrangeas, they might know the one that has a green-looking flower that opens, kind of fades to cream. That's Hydrangea Arborescens Annabelle. Well, Annabelle is a cultivar. People know that, especially gardeners. But it's something that has been hybridized or naturally hybridized out of the native one. And so we plant that, and then the new cultivars that are coming out, so people can see the progression of, or at least visitors understand if we tell them that this is a native plant that grows here. It does well in anybody's garden, and you don't have to worry about hardiness and flower buds, not flowering and all that stuff. Grow this one. So that's the goal for us, to teach people about the plants that do well here, that are native, and do well in your garden.
Number one question I get: why doesn't my hydrangea bloom? If they grow this hydrangea, it will bloom.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
I love
And
hydrangeas.
do you get people like, well, my what's a bird of paradise just doesn't grow in my front yard, right?
You got to move
Yeah.
or go see at Phipps.
Yeah.
That's what.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
And also, I know that you're still kind of expanding. You
Oh,
have
yes.
to complete. So you had one portion completed by the end of summer. You want to
Yeah.
talk about that?
Yeah.
And then your welcome center is scheduled to be ready for spring.
That's right. So we just have been open 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And 2 summers ago, we opened the Pollinator Garden. And this past summer, July 30th, we opened the kind of family discovery garden that we call the Garden of the Five Senses. And that's a wonderful 1.5-acre garden that is very much hands-on exploring. Kids love to play and do things. If you participate or came to see us during Moonlight and Cocoa that we just had, there was a walkway through there in the winter and the nighttime, so all that works well. But we have a new part of our site and our garden offerings coming first part of April, and that's our new welcome center, as well as by our new auto garden and driveway and parkings, which all of you today probably parked in our new parking lot. We're glad to have that on board. And it opens early April. We're hoping April 1st. That will celebrate our 6th anniversary of being open. And that's a great, exciting new building with brand new facilities as amenities for our guests.
Yeah.
So new welcome center, new welcome desk, a gathering room, gift shop, cafe, classrooms, public restrooms, and then you're out to the gardens.
Sounds like a perfect
but
place to podcast from in April.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
be back in
Yeah.
April. But talk a little bit about, as I said to you, how intrigued I was with, there's actually a focus on autism with the whole sensory gardens.
Right.
Talk about
so
that. So
autism,
literally
but
each-
also just this Garden of the Five Senses is there for everyone.
Sure.
So we really have tried to design it and focus that it's a garden that's very inclusive. And that goes from accessibility. We had very little hard surface walkways before these 2 new gardens just opened. With the Welcome Center, that's actually adding more feet of walkway that people can use as a hard surface. But also how we've designed the interactive activities. And I'll give you one example. Probably the coolest thing in that garden right now, any day of the year, is the Kaleidoscope that's in there. So you think, oh, Kaleidoscope, yeah. Well, there's 3 of them on an apparatus that's kind of circular like this, but one's way down here. So kids or someone that might be using a wheelchair, or if you can only stand up, there's a tall one. But the coolest part is there's a planter in the middle of it, and if you turn it and you turn this Kaleidoscope, it's
So
magical. Yeah.
Wow.
Things like that. It's really fun.
Yeah.
There's balance beams, there's hula hoops, there's turf chairs you can sit out on the lawn. The vegetable gardening programs that we're now able to do are open that
Somebody
space.
planted some garlic in there.
Yes.
Doug, what's the coolest thing you like to do coming out here?
I like to hike out here.
Okay.
I like to go all the way to the back. I love it's so funny because as I've got to know this place, but the Japanese garden out there might be my favorite. I like to be out.
Why, can I ask a question? Why is it a Japanese garden? Is it the plants that are there, or is it the
Style,
design?
planting.
Why is it called a Japanese garden?
Both.
Oh,
Okay.
It is, we call it, it's within, the Japanese gardens within the Asian woodlands.
Okay.
And we are focusing on plants that are native here, like we said, but also some other climates and temperate regions of the world. And Asia is very similar to here. So that garden had a water feature that we then were able to pull some Asian design into it.
But
Okay.
the thing about it, and Keith will tell you, that just blows my mind, is that water, before they started treating it, nothing could live in there.
Yeah.
The pH was so bad, and it was just coming from acid mine drainage. But
Sure.
this is an amazing thing.
Yep. So we've talked real quick that coal mining took place on this land,
Yes.
and it's really a part of our story. If we look actually out the windows that way, you can see some open space further into the woods. And it is one of the ways we have remediated some of the acid mine drainage that continues to come out of these old existing mines by going down and opening up coal mines and filling them back in. That was one way. What Doug's referring to is how we treat the water that's literally coming out of old mines through a very passive system of having to run past chunks of limestone in a big tank, if you will, and then it goes on, and then the aluminum hydroxide that's collected, it goes to a different place. But the water that's clean goes into our Japanese garden, to our lotus pond, as it's called.
And
Got
you
it.
guys,
And
how
it's
long do you
gorgeous.
think it would take?
Yeah.
Oh, I
With
hate
that pond has
questions.
been there forever, that nothing lived in there, that when they started treating it, how long until you start to see life?
Oh my.
I don't know. I'm guessing since you're at,
I'm gonna
I mean, I
phone a
would have said
friend,
2
Doug.
years, right?
No.
Weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very quickly.
Is that right?
So
Really?
acid mine drainage is like a pH 2. It's like vinegar, and really nothing grows in vinegar. You clean with vinegar, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to kill stuff. But we have, through this very passive process, been able to turn around that water quickly, and that's about 5 or 6 years ago now that's happened. But
Wow, that's crazy.
insects and fish, of course, and plants and water lilies and all these things, and it's a great place for us with everybody to enjoy. But the school programming are down
Yeah.
there, fishing out and learning about the invertebrates and all these things that are down
But
there.
he still won't let me fish in that
Oh,
pond.
yeah. Yeah.
And I was going to say, we actually did jump subjects because you were in the process of saying that it took 10 years, until 1998 for them to find
Yes.
it. So what took from then until you said you'll be 6 years old?
Right. So we had 460 acres of woods.
Yeah.
And in 2000, and so the concept was to start creating an entrance into this property off of a side road that came up onto the site, an old township road. It wasn't here at this part of the property, but when 2004 happened and Hurricane Ivan hit the land, hit our Western Pennsylvania site
Sure.
from the east. That much more rain came, and I don't know the numbers, but a lot of rain happened, and then that water that was in those old mines really that
Forget
much
it.
more pushed out.
okay.
So it was realized that we have to start cleaning up the
That's a
acid
good
mine
question.
drainage
Wow.
on the site.
Yeah.
If we're going to be growing any plants.
Wow.
So delays, figuring out, finding a way. So finally we acquired a little bit more land, and we got this barn and the site where the cabin is, and through some grant money, we finally were able to renovate this space and get open.
In this space.
And we are in a space where you can actually rent. We didn't even talk about this, but where you can rent, you can have an event here. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you go look at the photographs on Instagram, YaJagoff, or Facebook at YaJagoff. Watch the video, because this is really a cool place to have an event.
Oh, it's
now, let's get to the question why we really want you here. This has all been a ruse, because really, I really have an urban legend question for you. An old wives' tale question is, does it really help my freshly cut Christmas tree to put an aspirin in the water? Does it really make it last longer?
He's going off the script, guys. I'm not real happy.
How about if we just say it doesn't hurt?
It's like,
That was good. That was
I like it.
When you
Wasn't
get
even
a dozen roses, drop a penny in there too.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Okay,
hurt
yeah.
either.
So really, is there really any sense? Does watering a tree actually work?
Oh yeah, watering it, yes.
Okay, so that does
My
work.
Christmas tree is proof.
Yeah, well, yeah,
this.
because it's dead,
It's
right?
this.
Charlie Brown called to get
My
it.
kids won't want
Right.
it. Yeah.
But no, so that actually does kind of keep it fresh. It does take up the water. Okay.
You
But
got to take the bottom off that Christmas tree when you get home.
yeah.
And then you got to put it right in water, because if that seals up, it's not going to take the water up. But once it does, you'll see
Yeah.
that you got to add water.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Every
for
day.
sure. I just didn't know if it really made it last longer. Yeah. Got
Is
it.
drying out the biggest problem with any kind of flowers or plants? Like, is that what the biggest problem
There's
that you
lots
hear
of
people-
biggest problems.
Well, yeah.
'Cause that's
Probably.
what
I
I
mean, if
do,
you don't
yeah.
water something, you put in, especially when you just plant it,
Yes.
and don't rely on the rain. If you know you're planting a tree or a shrub or a little annual plant, and it's supposed to rain today, just ignore that concept.
Okay.
You heard it. Flood
Yeah.
that thing.
Flood it.
Okay.
So you can't overwater
You
it.
can't overwater it.
There
It's
you
first
go.
day.
That's
first day.
actually a
a
really good
Rachel
question.
Mums.
That's
That's what
yeah.
happened to my
And
mom.
does this pH thing really matter? Like as far as whatever plant you, if I'm a home gardener, I throw something, a hydrangea or whatever else in.
Not to start with, just plant it and don't worry about it.
Okay. Okay.
But the concept, yes, and the science behind it, yes.
Okay.
Your vegetable garden and your lawn, the pH should be right. You can get a soil test, very inexpensive, from the Penn State Cooperative Extension. They'll send it to you. You dig up a little soil, you put it in there, you send it to the lab, they send it back to you, and they give you the scientific data. My dad used to send us out every spring. Boys, we're going to lime the yard. He
Yeah.
had no idea, that's just to change pH, but he had no idea if he was using twice as much as he needed or half as much.
Oh, right.
You have
Yeah.
a scientific number, now you have a scientific formula on how much lime or whatever you're going to apply to change the pH to get it where you want it. And that's how you should do it. You can't be guessing.
Okay.
We get that question every day. Like, is it okay to lime? Well, if you don't know what your pH is, how do
Yeah.
you know how much lime to put on?
Sure.
Yeah.
Or whatever you're going to use.
And the other very, very important thing is have organic soil, organic matter, or whatever you want to call it, to
Okay.
your soil added to it. So that's why I made reference to a compost pile. Everybody should have a little compost pile of some sort because you cannot have too much organic matter.
And you'll never, you'll always need more compost. When you have a compost pile, you use all of it because it is the.
And those piles of leaves that
Yeah.
you send away, just leave them wherever in a pile. And by spring, they're going to be down here. And then by fall, they're going to be ready to
Yeah.
Don't tell my family that. Don't tell me that.
Right. I could ask you one more question if you don't mind. Should I save my poinsettia? Right?
No.
Should it no?
It
does
did its job. It's done.
Okay.
Send it to your compost pile.
I say
Uh-oh.
the opposite thing. Being
Controversy.
the cheapest gardener in the world, the idea is get that poinsettia, get it through the holidays, and now you got to get it all the way until May, and then you plant it in the garden, and it becomes this big thing. Then you can throw it in the compost.
Well, it depends if you want to try to.
You're like,
play
okay.
with it,
Yeah.
but
That's-
you're not going to do. I mean, it's fun, and gardeners will try it for 1 or 2 years, and they'll say,
Yeah.
"I'm not doing this
And it's
anymore."
never
Yeah,
it's
right,
never
right.
going to rebloom like that.
No.
Got it,
Unless you have it a little greenhouse where you can get the light on it to be exactly right. But yeah, it's just a fun thing.
It takes up a bigger spot at the compost pile at some point, right? If you were to
right,
grow it, right?
right.
We said
You
in the beginning,
guys,
it's fun. I mean, a plant, it's okay to get rid of it. They all don't live.
Right.
you guys have been amazing. I have a million
could
questions
come
for
back
you.
a million
I have a
times,
million questions
yeah.
for you, but we won't. We have our question of the day that we have to get to. So this is always the
But
toughest
before
part.
we do, can you let everyone know, they can still visit the museum? Well,
Yep.
the
Yep.
museum,
Well, we're a
the
living
garden.
museum.
It is
You're right.
somewhat,
We are a
right?
living museum. Yes, we are closed on Mondays.
Okay.
And we will be closed Christmas Eve, the 24th and 25th, and the 30th and 31st.
Okay.
No, 31st and the 1st.
Yeah.
But we are open regularly Tuesday through Sunday. At this time of year, 9 to 5.
Okay.
And in the summers, we do stay open later on Wednesdays and Thursdays.
Okay, appointments?
No, but we do ask you for to go online and actually do reserve ticketing.
Gotcha.
Is it a donation or is it a fee?
No, there's a
$10.
ticket. So we do time ticketing.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I did the show notes.
You did, yeah.
Become a member, right, Keith?
Become a member.
Become a
That's right. Become a
Okay.
member.
Yes.
Listen, that's a great gift for Colin Parrish.
Right.
Seriously, we didn't Christmas gift him yet. Oh, I'm so smart.
Right.
He has a great little
Get a
greenhouse
Sam's
in
Club
Pittsburgh.
membership and you're angry every Saturday because it's
Yeah.
crowded. You come here, you're not angry. You're in the
No.
peaceful Asian garden,
And
right?
Let's say
after
where we are a little
Sam's
bit.
Club, you come here.
Come here and
Yes.
relax, right?
Go.
I
So
love
we
it.
are in Oakdale, and thank
Yes.
you for saying that. We're
Yep.
10 miles west of downtown
Yep.
Pittsburgh. And I always tell people who have no clue, I say, if you can find Robinson Town Center or IKEA, you can find us.
No question.
But you won't know that we're near there because we're much more remote feeling than
But
others.
and you're
Isn't it
exactly
the
right. On the
truth?
way out here, Keith, she said Oakdale. I'm like, oh God, I know Oakdale. When you're listening to this podcast, don't think, oh God, Oakdale, way out there. No, it's literally right next to
No.
Robinson Township. Yeah, exactly.
And if you know,
On the back end, right?
Noblestown Road from Carnegie area, it's
Yeah.
super easy.
Yeah,
Off 79.
exactly. Yeah. Doug, where do they find you online?
Just go to DougOster.com and you can find all my stuff there, the videos, podcasts, radio show, everything's there.
You need to have Rachel on your podcast to talk about killing plants. She's a plant murderer.
What not to do,
She's
Doug,
a plant
seriously.
murderer. Yeah.
No, and we will obviously have all of your information in the show notes. And I can't urge people enough to check this place out. Look at the gorgeous photos that we'll have for you to peruse. But definitely take the time to come out during the holidays. Awesome.
Right. And
All
have an
right.
event here too.
Question of the day,
Once
guys.
you can have it.
These are the hard hitting. All right. I don't know if you want to accept this challenge. Okay, so basically we go through 3. I'm losing my place though. Okay. Salt the driveway, or do you use kitty litter?
I don't use salt.
Okay.
I use a lighter product with magnesium as the main ingredient, and I use it at the application rates. So it's the same price as salt,
Oh my
but
God.
it's not as tough on the plants or on the
Ground?
pets
Yeah.
or on the driveway.
Yes.
If you just use it sparingly, and I had to do it this morning because I had to get a videographer and a co-host up my driveway, which was quite a challenge.
I'm sure. What about you?
So I use an ice melt, but not salt because salt is too damaging to the
That's
plants.
what I hear.
Yes.
Okay.
But
to plants,
sand,
sure, yeah.
use sand.
Oh, really?
Sand.
Okay.
Look, let me tell you something. I usually get annoyed when people go off the subject and go with a third choice, but you guys, we just learned something. So you're safe. You're safe.
And God, don't
You're
annoy
pretending
her.
not to be annoyed.
I'm not. You would know, Doug. I promise. It's good. Marshmallows and hot chocolate, or flavored cream in your coffee. These are all wintry fun questions.
Marshmallows and hot chocolate.
Neither.
Oh, you went off
Oh, I have
script.
to have one? I would have marshmallows.
Look,
on my
she
coffee.
threatened him. She threatened you with her eyes,
He's
didn't
like,
she?
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now
this
she's
is easy
annoyed.
for Doug because you kind of answered it. Holiday mask or generic paper one?
Holiday, baby. Holiday.
I love it. And
I
Keith?
do have one holiday, but mine's pretty generic.
I gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
but
You
I do
guys-
have one with ginkgo leaves on it. So.
Of course you do. I would expect no less. We cannot thank you enough. This was so interesting. And quick thing about Rachel, usually on the podcast, if I say interesting, that's when John goes, oh, she's not interested. I promise you, this was super enlightening for me. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
Good.
and again,
How
I
much more
have a
can you
million
learn?
questions. I have a million questions for you.
So we'll just
we're
come back in
you're
April
gonna have
whenever
you
the
back
Wellness
April for
Center.
your grand opening. We'll schedule a podcast for
Yeah,
reals.
perfect.
All
Thank
right,
you,
cool.
guys.
Thank you guys. And pitch to say.
Oh, and next up will be Say, who is Frizzy's fiance. Do you like that? All right, and then you can play. Awesome. We rhyme. Isn't that amazing?
Now, Stephanie, while you're
I
there,
know. How do you not applaud her?
why don't you go ahead and play like a song for the end of the podcast? That way you could be, and we'll come over here and interview you. You know what I mean? So just play something, a full song, whatever, like 2, 3, whatever you want to play. No longer than 2 minutes or so, but.
Okay, would I play too long or?
No.
Oh, no, you can play. If you have a full song, that's awesome. I just don't want you to think you have to do all the work. That's all. But this would be the song that we play at the end of the podcast because we always play like a full song. So totally up to you. Or you can, but you don't have to feel obligated to play a full song is what I'm saying. You can cut it short if you want. So, okay. Yep. So, Rachel, over here.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
That's she's amazing.
Yeah. All right, come on in here, Stephanie. That is amazing. So, Stephanie, before we ask you any questions, I have a question for Rachel. Because as we said in the beginning of the podcast, we've been trying to get a harp player, a harpist or a harp player, correct? Karen?
Either one's fine with me.
On the podcast for about 2.5 years. And I want to ask Rachel, why is the harp your favorite instrument?
Such a good question. You know, I will say the reason that I kept saying I love the harp, I come from a musical family. And it was more voice that I liked. But if there was any instrument that truly, and I'm not being punny, but struck a chord, was the harp. Because it sounds like multiple instruments at once. And so you're getting the strings and you're hearing bass and you're hearing all these different melodies that you don't get when you're strumming a guitar or a bass or a drum, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the answer. But I have to tell you, it's melancholy for me. I was married 20 years ago in October. And we had a harp player at my wedding, and it was one of my fondest memories. And honestly, life, gets crazy, and I have children, and don't get to appreciate the art of that music. So I appreciate that we made Tracy get on it and find her.
Right.
This was fantastic.
And the
Thanks
funny
for
story
having
about
me.
you, Stephanie, is that we gave you about 9 different dates. We're
Yeah.
like, meet us here. No, don't. Then meet us here. Like you were in your car probably 6 different times, headed a certain direction, and then we got canceled. So
This was the perfect venue for you.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
Oh my
gorgeous.
gosh, yeah. Well, welcome. So it's Stephanie Miller, and Stephanie isn't just a harp. A lot of times musicians, unfortunately, because of pay scale, to be honest, aren't always just musicians by trade. That's what their other job is, But for you, you've turned that craft into, you've kind of morphed 2 things. Is that right? With your profession?
Well, I've taken music and gotten several different certifications to use it therapeutically to help others, and I also play for events and things, and that's why our business is called Music for Life of Pittsburgh, because we can play for pretty much any aspect of your life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the therapeutic part and why,
Sure.
how you found that. I love how you're saying music for certifications, because let's face it, everything can get certifications at this point in life. And it's so cool to know that something that entertains us and can bring us joy or strike a memory or something like that is now something that is being used for even more purposes.
Oh, yes. Music's been therapeutic for us throughout the ages.
Sure.
And we're learning more over time of how we can use it. So I have a couple different trainings. I'm a certified music practitioner. I train through the Music for Healing and Transition program. And that is a certification to help musicians learn how to play at the bedside, to help people relax, to create a healing environment. Basically, we're creating an environment through music to provide in-the-moment comfort care. So we're addressing the immediate needs of someone at that moment through music.
Wow. So is it amazing, like when you're in, when you're in that healthcare situation, do you even notice the healthcare providers?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, if you look at the definition on the mhtp.org, where I went to school, you can see that they say for the ill and dying and all who are present. That's very true. I have walked onto the unit and had a nurse jump up and down and start clapping, say, "Oh, thank goodness my shift's on the harp lady. She's here. I'm so glad. It's been forever. Yay."
Yeah.
So it really does help the staff. I've actually been playing. I play sometimes just for the nursing station. And one time I was playing and a nurse came over and held a phone up to the harp and said, "I hope you don't mind, but the doctor on the other floor is having a really tough day, and I think he could just really use some music right now."
Wow.
And so it can really help the staff a lot.
And this isn't your only instrument. You play flute?
Yes, I do play flute. I'm also certified to play flute therapeutically, but I typically play harp. Since I have that nice wide range, and not that you can't do wonderful
Sure.
things. I have several colleagues who do. It's just, for me personally, I find...
No
it
way, we're
works
getting you to
better for me.
talk bad about this soon. No. So take us back to whenever, because people, I associate harps with angels and harps with the harp and fiddle, the Irish music. But
Yeah.
what's the history of the harp and sort of where it all? Is there a certain country where it originated?
Oh, well, this is what's fascinating about the harp, and I'm by no means an expert. But from what I understand, there's a harp-type instrument all across the globe. It's found everywhere.
Culturally, you're saying?
Yes, every
Okay.
culture that I'm aware of, and again, I'm not a historian, but to my knowledge.
Yeah.
There's some kind of harp-like instrument everywhere. You can look and find it.
Right, and I believe that. Listen,
Yeah.
of course, who doesn't need a harp? I need like a hashtag. Need more harp. Like there was need more cowbell.
Need more
harp.
Right.
Oh my gosh. And I have to say, so obviously 20 years, I got married in 2000 and the harp was ginormous.
Yes.
I can't believe, when I saw you over there kind of unpacking and getting ready, it's more, I'm going to use the word compact.
Yes.
Is it a different type of harp or is this evolution?
Well,
Little of both?
Yes.
Okay.
So the harp that people typically think of is usually a pedal harp, like one in the orchestra, usually a gold
Yes.
color and things like that. But they can come in all shades of colors. But what's nice about the pedal harp is there are little mechanisms at the top of each. There's a pin that holds the string that goes from the soundboard all the way up. And so there's a little mechanism that will shorten and lengthen the string so you can get a wide range of sharps, naturals, and flats. And you can do it all with a pedal. So when you see someone in the orchestra who's playing and they're just running their hands, it's called a glissando. That's a glissando. And then they keep doing that, and the chord's changing. Like, how are they doing that? They're using their feet. Because on a pedal harp, one pedal corresponds to one note in the scale. And there's 7 notes in a scale. The 8th one is the octave, so that's the repeat.
Okay.
So I'll give you the quick harp tour if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Do it. Yeah.
Okay, so on my harp over here, and on most modern harps, there are different colored strings, so you can tell what to do with your instrument. So right now, I can play, these are the red strings, and here are the blue strings. So the C's are red, the F's are blue, and then you have the ones in between. And then if you play them all together, you get your scale. So there's a pedal for each one of these sounds. And on the harp that I have, which is not a pedal harp, this is called either a Celtic or a lever harp. I have these little levers that I can raise, so that's C natural. Now if I raise the lever, that is C sharp.
Yes.
So I can, with this instrument, raise the lever. So here's F. Now that's F sharp.
Wow.
So I can raise it, but I can't do flats. I tune in flats so I can get almost as many sharps and flats as a piano, but I'm limited. The pedal harp, which is why it's so great for orchestra and jazz and other things, is that they have a pedal for the C. So if you change the pedal a certain way, so that's C natural, you change it to one slot, you get C sharp. You change it back down, you get C flat. And that's how you can actually make the instrument be one chord by
Wow.
changing the sharp. It's a really fascinating instrument. But the Celtic harp, or the lever harp here, is very good too. And there's wonderful harpists who can change in between as they're playing to get different sharps and things. But this one is really great. Its superpower is what I like to call it, is if I have one accidental, which means I have one note that is not what you're thinking of when in the terms of the key, I can just set it and forget it.
Wow.
So I don't have to move my foot. I don't have to think about it. It's done. So that's its superpower.
Wow.
But it's easier to play classical pieces and jazz pieces on a larger harp.
What do you prefer?
Well, I would love a pedal harp, but I don't own one.
What about classical to jazz?
Oh, classical to jazz. Oh, I love all music. It's really hard for me to pick one.
Oh, don't be one of those. Stephanie.
I really like Celtic music,
Yeah, same.
which works really well on a Celtic harp.
Yeah, right.
And I like typically the music that I write as a composer, all the music that I've played is music I've written, tends to be more simple and relaxing and can be tailored well for therapeutic uses. I often improvise at the bedside to help meet the immediate needs of a patient. And from that, if I remember, I can turn that into a song that I'll later write down. And so a lot of the things that I tend to play are more on the simple end. But if you think about music kind of like food, one of my colleagues, Amy, told me this, is that, you know, when you're not feeling well, you tend to eat soup and crackers, right? Not a steak dinner.
Right.
Same thing with sound. When you're at a bedside time, you're not going to play Flight of the Bumblebee, right?
Exactly.
You
Right.
want something that is relaxing, that
Soothing,
you
yes.
can fall asleep to. And so when you think of music therapeutically in that way, it tends to be more on the simple and slowed down tempo.
And you're that kind of person too. Like I feel myself like, okay, we're kind of chilling here. That you're like the harp. You're the human version of a harp. We know that we want to talk about the documentaries you're in, but when you write, you just intrigued me with your one response is you write songs for a harp.
Yes.
So if you write a song for a harp, how do you have to adjust it musically for a guitar or a keyboard? Does something have to happen? Do they have to?
Oh, yeah. The way I tend to play guitar when I do, and I'm not that well versed in it, but I like to strum chords.
Okay.
So if you want a melody, I'm not a good lead guitar player. The lead guitar typically takes the melody to play on the fretboard. That you would have to adapt it in that way. The harp itself, if you go to like a baby grand or a concert grand piano, inside is a harp.
Yes.
So it's very similar to piano music. The differences would be noting like the glissando, this sound. There'd be different notation for that and things like the specific ways of playing this instrument versus playing piano with keys. But otherwise, it's pretty similar to piano music.
I was thinking because there's so many sharps or whatever here, do you have to sort of interpret it to something else, to a saxophone or a keyboard or something? I'm way out of my league on this question. I'm just letting you know. And feel free to tell me to shut
John
up.
writes music.
Well, I would probably make the music in a lead sheet form where I'd put the melody down and the chords over. And, you know, if anyone's interested in any of the songs they heard, I saw the music on the website, and we make sure to put the chords over the melody too. So if you just want to strum the chord and not play the accompaniment I put with it, you can. And if you just want to play the melody, you can. So that might be a way a guitarist might be able to play it, or maybe just hum or sing.
Gotcha.
Make up your own words, whatever you'd like to do.
Gotcha.
But it's
And you
there.
give lessons?
I don't actually do lessons.
Okay.
I do teach preschool children music
Yep.
in the morning, but through
I
the
love that.
Jewish Community Center.
I think that's fantastic.
I love it.
Music
She's
specialist
so well-versed.
there.
Her hat.
I love it. Yeah.
Documentaries.
That's
talk-
why
Yeah.
I play ukulele usually. But we did play harp for Hanukkah. And
Okay.
you know, this is the last day of Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Right.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
you were in some documentaries. So
Yes.
talk about those a little bit, please.
Sure. Let's see. The Irish documentary?
Yes.
My husband is a music therapist, and he was studying music therapy at Radford at the time that I got asked to be involved with the documentary. The documentary highlighted Radford students in Ireland, and they were there to go see the sites of the great poets in Ireland. And so they needed some harp to back up the visuals. So I played some music for them, and they ended up choosing a song that I wrote to include with the film, which I was very honored
That's
in.
cool.
Yeah, so that's how I got involved with that documentary.
Okay.
That's great. Do you have any affiliation with the Pittsburgh Irish Festival?
Oh, no.
Really? Well, to connect her.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. They connect with people all over the world, specifically, obviously, Ireland. But it's so amazing because they really just focus on celebrating their culture all year round.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh my gosh, this was like a dream come true.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think we should be connecting you with Keith here, and as people go through the sensories, you can go to each station and just strum, right?
There you go. Or weddings.
Yeah.
There you
yeah.
go. There you
She's
go.
like,
Yeah,
yeah.
weddings.
Let me tell you about weddings, Rach. That's what she said. Yeah. She's like,
But listen, where can everybody find you so they can follow you and know a little bit more about your great craft?
Our website is www.musicforlifepgh.com, and that talks about all our different services. We provide drum circles. My husband's a music therapist, so he has music therapy services. I'm a therapeutic musician. If anyone's looking for virtual bedside music, I'm doing that right now for the VA. And so if anybody's interested in that, I have lost some work with this. So I am available, and so hit me up. My email's on the
I love
website.
it. Yeah, for sure. And then do you want to hit her up with the
Do it.
questions of the day?
You do it.
All right. So, this is a winter podcast. This is almost the last one for 2020. So as we wrap up, when you are kind of out there and there's snow and ice, are you using salt, which most people apparently are not, or kitty litter, or something else? I'll throw that in there.
I typically use the ice melt.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's two for that question. Next one.
You do use, no, you go.
Marshmallows in your hot coffee or creamer in marshmallows in your hot chocolate or creamer in your coffee?
Oh, marshmallows in my hot chocolate,
Really?
for
I'm
sure.
a creamer coffee person. You guys are all crazy. And then the final one, are you a plainer as far as the mask, or do you like a holiday mask? You're wearing the N95.
Well, right now I'm wearing the N95 because of the numbers and such. and
Sure.
There are times I see people through my work, so I'm
Yeah.
cautious. But I love holiday masks.
Right.
My mother made me a music mask that I really like. I like to make masks sometimes, but I opted for this one
I
today.
love seeing how people are making it an accessory.
Yeah, it's become your flair,
Yeah, it's
right?
really
It really
fun.
has become your flair.
All right, I
Nice.
say that she plays a song while we go out. We kind of read out.
Oh,
What do you
that's
think?
cool. All right.
Are you up for it?
Oh, of
I mean,
course.
any excuse to get you to play one more time.
It's
I'm
so
gonna
nice
have
to
it.
play for people in person. It
Wow,
really is
yeah,
a
do
treat.
We're
it.
gonna get people
That
onto
microphone near
Okay,
it.
I will
And
do that.
Larry, if you don't
Awesome.
mind, do you
Okay.
mind holding that one? Oh, good
love
call.
it.
You're calling, yeah. All right, cool. So this is where we say,
you.
this is where we start our thank yous. First of all,
Oh my gosh.
thanks to Pittsburgh Botanic Garden.
Not old.
Not
Rachel.
botanical, yeah, right. And Keith, just an amazing place. If you have not been here,
What
if
an
you're
interesting
you're
story.
from out of town, when you come here, make this one of your stops.
No question.
Yeah.
And they've only been around 5 years,
Right.
so we should have known about this already, though. And thanks to Doug,
Here you go, a little music bed.
who has definitely been in our bullpen and will definitely be on again soon, because we have to seriously find out tips and what not to do's and things like that, so I can become a better gardener this spring. So
Right.
thanks to Doug. And thanks to Say, I love this story. I mean, who needs Hallmark when you have these movies that you can be watching digitally?
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, thanks to our harp player, Stephanie.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's been.
Are you a fan now?
Oh, yeah, totally. I was a fan, but it's like this, to see it live is just an amazing
Full
thing.
of
So
it.
yeah, totally cool.
And then, of course, thank you to our sponsors, Rorick Honda, because they know their customers and community. So they have asked some comedians to better explain the bells and whistles affiliated with their cars. Through fun parodies, check out the value of the Rorick Advantage.
The spacious interior of new and used finds, and experience the durability of a Honda vehicle, all by following us on social media. To learn more about a Honda that suits you, visit Rorick.com for all of your harp needs.
Yeah, maybe we should put a harp player at the Roricks.